What is going on, everyone? Tim from Tierfon Orbital. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about an install commission that I completed on a Sith killer from KY Lightsabers. So this is an offering from KY Lightsabers. There is a brother to this hilt, which is a Jedi killer. So they are both very similar themed and similar looking. The other one is obviously darker. It's black. But this particular one, I did have some requests from the customer, right? So we wanted to put an upgraded crystal chamber in this build. Shtok Custom Works offers a machined crystal chamber module. It's an absolutely fantastic piece of kit that you can upgrade SKs with them, and they work perfectly in these as well, right? So it is a fully machined crystal chamber with brass and aluminum. It's really, really fantastic. So that is what we upgraded the crystal chamber with. I did some other modifications to this hilt as well, right? So we do have like a lower vent. I utilized this for a secondary crystal chamber. So there's another quartz down in here, right? The chassis for this install is a little bit different as well. So I have recently made a transition into FDM printing, right? So I got a Carbon X1 from Bambu Labs about a week ago, and I've been running it through its paces. This is the first FDM printed chassis that I have installed with. I am really, really happy with the result. I'm happy with the kind of performance and detail I am getting out of the Carbon X1. So this particular chassis was printed in PETG Carbon Fiber. I'm really, really happy with the tactile feel of PETG. Obviously, it's very, very strong. So with that being said, I wanted to get some greeblies onto this chassis. Now, the carbon is great for detail, but it's good for detail, right? But I still can't get the level of greebly detail that I'm used to with resin printing, right? So my very good friend, Benji at Nerfherder Customs, I want to make sure that I give him a shout out because this was actually his idea. We were talking about it a while ago, and he was actually, mentioning that he wanted to try it, right? So, I got Benji's permission to give it a whirl, right? But I wanted to make sure I gave Benji a shout out because this was actually his idea. But I'm really, really happy with how it came out, right? So essentially, I designed my chassis how I usually design my chassis. I have like a library of greeblies that I've created and modified over the years. So each greebly is its own component in Fusion. So I designed my chassis the way I usually would with all those greeblies as their own components. And then I can separate them from the main body of the chassis, export that greebly panel as a STL or a step file, bring it into Fusion if I need to make any modifications, and then I can just print that panel, that greebly panel, in resin, and then just slap it on the side of the PETG chassis. So yeah, I'm really, really happy with the result. I think the the Carbon X1, it's a fantastic machine. I've had a good experience with it so far. I actually had an issue with my extruder a couple of days ago, but I think that is due to my ignorance in FDM printing. Like, I'm still learning a lot. Like, it took me a little while to nail down a process when I started resin printing years ago. So yeah, there's just a few intricacies that do carry over between the two mediums for 3D printing. But for the most part, I'm really, really happy with this machine. It is fantastic. I had to print a very small spacer the other day, and it took 5 minutes to print on this machine. I didn't have to worry about washing it and curing it and all that. So yeah, it's a really, really awesome machine. So with all of that out of the way, let's come into Fusion and talk a little bit about this chassis. Benji from Nerfherder Customs. All right, so here is the chassis. So right off the bat, you'll notice I've got my greeblies separated from the rest of the model. So I have a library full of different greeblies that I made and edited over the years. I also did some tube work in here. What I do is all of these are their own components in Fusion, right? I put them in their own folder or their own group. I have to make sure, because there's like some blank areas in here, right? If I didn't have this backing to this greebly panel, this would not print very well in resin. It would break immediately, right? So after I export my greeblies, I got to make sure that I've got a panel behind them. So they've got something to mount to, if you will, right? And that also makes gluing this entire thing to the side of the chassis a little bit easier. But that's how I did that, right? And then here's the rest of the main body of the chassis. So one of the things that I have done numerous times in almost every chassis that I've done in the past year and a half, almost 2 years, I've had that same resin greebly or vent greebly for 2020 neopixels. That particular greebly is way too detailed to do in FDM printing. So I had to switch up my venting for 2020 neopixel strips. So this is just a very, very simple shine through vent, right? I've got a 2020 neopixel strip that goes underneath this with a piece of mylar for diffusion. Fully enclosed 28 millimeter speaker, from Smuggler's Outpost. Below the board is our kill switch, and here is our Profi tray. It will slide up underneath this lip. This is another thing that I really, really love about FDM printing, right? You can really get a nice press fit for your board with FDM. The reason I've done this design for my Profi boards this whole time is because with resin, you can kind of get a press fit, but it's not flexible enough. And after a while, it wears away at that resin. And I've just never had a great experience with just doing like regular press fit into a chassis. I mean, usually you've got to like E6000 it, but with FDM, I mean, the board just kind of like snaps into place and you don't even really need to push it up underneath this lip. So that's another thing that I'm really, really loving about printing in this medium. Battery tray is around back, obviously, and up top is our nipple. This is what we make a connection into the upper part of the hilt. And that's it, right? So let's come up top. Benji from Nerfherder Customs. Okay, so here it is, right? This is the Sith Killer from KY Lightsabers. The brother to this hilt is a dark black hilt with a red external wire. But here is that, I don't know why I mentioned that, but it doesn't make any sense for me to mention that in this video. All right, so there are two versions of this hilt. That's all that really matters, I guess. Here is that upgraded machined crystal chamber from Shtok Custom Works. This is a really, really, really nice crystal chamber module. I highly recommend getting this. It's very, very easy to disassemble. You can put your neopixels on top and bottom. I do have a very, very small rose quartz point in that crystal chamber. The lower crystal chamber, I've got a very, very large quartz, just regular cloudy quartz point, right? And that's it, right? So something typical with KY lightsabers, the grips are not threaded. You do need to remove this set screw to get at your chassis, right? So I'm just gonna go ahead and remove that with this Allen key. And then you can pull your grip off, right? So this is a Profi V3 install. Here is that chassis. I'm super happy with how this came out, right? So there's that resin greebly panel that's been put onto this chassis. I like the tactile feel of PETG. I think it looks really, really cool too, right? But that's it. So to use this guy, spring side is your negative. So take the flat part of your battery, put it in the battery tray. So there's that 2020 neopixel strip. There is that dual crystal chamber, right? So once you get your battery in, you can put your grip back on. I just kind of line up this wire, and then you want to put in your set screw. All right. And that's it. So let's come down to the bottom. So there's that dual crystal chamber. So I wanted to take advantage of this lower vent section. So I put two crystals in here. Each one has its own, each one has its own animation. It's good sounding hill.
lightsaber. This is the weapon of a Jedi Knight.
Loud. All right. Let's put a blade in it. Okay, so this is a 1-inch blade holder. Another typical thing that I've noticed about KY lightsabers, there are a lot of screws on this thing. A little bit too long, right? So you've got to utilize one of these 2 screws for your blade retention. I've just unthreaded both of them. You kind of have to get your blade down in there. I'm just going to tighten this front set screw to kind of hug our blade. Same size Allen key to do that. And you're ready to go. One more.
Ascension.
Tighten that set screw a little bit more. Great sounding hilt. All right, one more.
Ahsoka Tano.
So that's it, right? That is the Sith Killer from KY Lightsabers. I had a lot of fun doing this. So this was, like I said, this was my first actual FDM 3D printed hilt from the Bambu Carbon X1. I'm really, really happy with how it came out. I'm happy with how this crystal chamber looks too. So it doesn't matter what I think though. It's, you know, the only thing that matters is what the customer likes, and the customer requested all that stuff. So I was happy to oblige, right? So that's all I got. To the customer, thank you very much for trusting me with your install. If anyone has any questions about this particular install, please do not be a stranger. And with that being said, may the force be with you always. Thanks for watching, everybody. Benji from Nerfherder Customs.